Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Shaiexploresdaily. And as you can see, I'm in the middle of beautiful Dublin. Today I'm going on a walking tour. I'm going to show you a few cool things, a few sights and so on. I actually have a guide today, so should be a very good video. If you enjoy it, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. Let's go. Let's walk around Dublin. So guys, behind me is the site of one of the most famous Irish rebellions of all time. The Great 1916 Rebellion, where Irish forces came here, bombarded themselves and defended the city from the British. Essentially, it was a rebellion and a protest on Easter to gain independence, and it was here where it happened. The rebellion wasn't successful at the time, but what it did do is it did show that Ireland was a very resilient nation against Britain in regards to getting their independence. Now guys, if you look at the windows of the building, the actual rebels, the freedom fighters as the Irish would call them, actually hid themselves, well not hid themselves, but stood behind those windows. And that was where essentially they waited for the British to arrive. The British actually sent ships or a ship down the river there to obviously meet them. And yeah, that's why this building is very important. So behind me you've got the spire. Well, it was meant to be known as the Millennium Spire, as it was supposed to be built and finished by 2000, but in true funny Irish fashion, it was actually finished in 2003. And the story behind it is this. So historically there was a statue of Admiral Lord Nelson in the middle of Dublin. As you can imagine, the Irish people weren't very happy about it, and IRA fighters essentially, I was told by my tour guide, planted a bomb and knocked it down. So in place they built this spire behind me. It has divided public opinion in Dublin. Some like it, some don't, but that is the story behind this spire. Pretty much. So behind me is the statue of Daniel O'Connell, which was a prominent Catholic figure of his time, and he was seen as one of the forefathers of Catholic rights here in Ireland. So essentially he fought for Catholics to have equal footing in society, and also for them to have a place in Parliament also as well. As you can tell, the whole street here and the bridge across from here is actually named after him, and he was so popular that he actually was invited to the Vatican to speak to the Pope, where he actually sadly died en route. Funnily enough, when he died, he had three requests. His body belonged to the people of Ireland, his soul to the God of heaven, and his heart to the Vatican. So his heart was taken out and actually laid to rest in the Vatican, where it was actually stolen after. But as you can see here, this is a strong remnants of his work that he's done here in Ireland. Behind me on the monument, going around it, you'll see four angels, and I believe these are meant to represent things such as courage and patriotism. It's really cool because it signifies what kind of person he was. He was a very courageous man. Also as well, the statue sadly was target practice of the British during the 1916 Easter Revolt, basically. And unfortunately, you can still see bullet holes on the actual statue from that day, sadly. So, as mentioned, behind me is the famous OConnell Bridge here in Dublin. And this bridge goes back to as far as, I believe, 1790. So, as I mentioned before, British forces came here and landed right here with their boats on Easter of 1916. It was from this point that I'm standing where they fired their shells towards the rebels inside the building and sadly hit the statue of O'Connell himself. In 1880, the actual bridge was actually widened, so it's actually as long as it is wide, which is very cool as well. It links O'Connell Street, which is the widest public street in Europe, I've been told, with the other side of Dublin, which contains areas like Trinity College and so on. So very cool, and it's like the centerpiece of Dublin that splits the city into two. So behind me is a monument to the late great Henry Gratton, who in the 1700s campaigned for more legislative freedom for Ireland under British rule. Essentially, Henry's movement was actually increased by the fact that the American independence movement happened around the same time, and this gave the Irish more courage and more momentum to essentially do the same thing basically. although they didn't get full independence, what his movement did do was allow Ireland less restrictions when it came to tax and things like that. So Henry is very fondly remembered in Ireland for these things that he did. It's very fitting that his statue actually stands in front of the old historic Irish Parliament building, because he actually served in Parliament for a period of time in Westminster during his life. So I'm standing in the courtyard of what was the historical Irish Parliament building. I believe this building dates back to 1729, and it is no longer a Parliament, but today it's a bank. But historically, this is where Irish Parliament was made and all the laws came from, and so on, basically. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's no windows actually going around. There's 0 windows. The reason is because it's believed that at the time there was a huge tax on windows by the British on the Irish, I believe. I believe that was punishment to the Irish from the British, I believe, for sort of campaigning for independence and so on. But as you can see, it is still standing, it's still the architecture, and I believe even Barack Obama spoke here, I believe up until about the last few years actually. So a lot of history in this building. So guys, I'm standing here on the grounds of Trinity College, which is Ireland's first and oldest college that goes back to 1592. So essentially this here is really cool because it's actually an open college, so you can actually walk around the grounds, which is actually really cool. This college has produced some of Ireland's best and brightest over the centuries, and historically, I believe as well, if I'm not mistaken, this college here was only, I believe, for Protestants at the time, before there was a big movement to get Catholic students into the admissions and fully integrated into the system. So it's a very cool college that I'm in right now. One really cool thing is when you walk around the grounds are so well kept, the grass is so clean and immaculate. Also as well, there is an exhibition here to the Book of Kells, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is a Celtic version, I think, of like some of the New Testament books, if I'm not mistaken. If I am mistaken, please write in the comments. But it's very cool. So behind me, I'm standing in front of, behind me I've got what is Ireland's version, sort of like their Declaration of Independence. This was drawn up during the rebellion of 1916, where the rebels essentially declared this document as a declaration against the British, who they felt were obviously oppressing them and they wanted their independence. The cool thing about this documentation is that, yes, it was inspired by the US Declaration of Independence, but it actually says something really cool. It starts with the following: Irish men and Irish women. At that time in Ireland, women didn't really have a say and didn't really have a voice. So this was the first official documentation in which women were given an equal footing in the history of this great country. At the bottom of this, right at the bottom, you will see the names of all the rebels who actually took part. I think it was about 14, and sadly they were all executed in pairs of 2s over the course of a week. The actual sad part is that this was actually the turning point of the revolution in Ireland, because one of their men, whose name I can't remember, his death sparked a turn in support for the rebels. So any rebels that essentially escaped or essentially went to the countryside are given ammunition and protection to fight against the British. So guys, behind me is the Temple Bar pub, which I'm told is the most Instagram pub in the world. It's in the heart of Temple Bar area of Dublin, and the pub itself at the moment is quiet, but I was told by a local that in the summertime you'll have hundreds of people queuing up here to take pictures of this place, and also as well lining up to get a drink. So very cool to visit and very cool to see. A very cool sight here in the beautiful city of Dublin. And here you've got a plaque to commemorate Sir William Temple, which clearly this pub was named after, basically. It's got a bit of history about him. He was a philosopher, and he lived around the 1600s. So guys, I'm standing here on what is historically known as Love Lane. Now some of you will be thinking, why on earth is it called Love Lane? What is the meaning behind it? So I'll basically explain to you right now. So this area here is full of arts and crafts and so on, but it's actually famous because in Dublin it was seen that historically whenever young couples would fall in love, etc., and they would grow in companionship, they would come here to this little alleyway area here, and do what they call have a snog. So in the UK and Ireland, the snog means like to have a passionate kiss, basically. So they come here at the end of the night, have a passionate kiss, and then run back to their parents or whatever. I don't know if that's still the case now. Apparently it still is. But along here you'll see lots and lots of cool arts and crafts, which is really cool because Dublin is quite an artsy city. So I think it's a really, really cool thing as well. So behind me is Dublin's Christchurch Cathedral. And this place is very interesting because it goes back to, I believe, the year 1030. And it's situated on a piece of land which historically people from Dublin believe is haunted or was haunted. So behind me, the church itself is situated on this site, and I believe there's 2 services weekly. The church, I believe, has gone through extensive renovations as time's gone on. Today, you can actually visit it and go for like little tours and stuff. But I believe due to its dark, spooky nature, the people of Dublin actually built another church not far from here, which is going to be a lot more better to look at. This place has such a spooky reputation that it is said that many Dublin locals choose to walk on the other side of the road to this church. And it's been said as well that dead bodies have actually been found in here previously in past centuries. So guys, behind me is the famous St. Patricks Cathedral. Probably the most famous church in Ireland. It's definitely the biggest, and St. Patrick's for most people is obviously famous for St. Patrick's Day, but the guy was so much more than just the inventor of St. Patrick's Day. So St. Patrick originally came from England, and he came across the Irish Sea to do missionary work here in Ireland. And to some people you could say he's the father of Christianity in Ireland. Essentially when he came, many people in Ireland were essentially worshipping the sun. And what happened was that they said to him, Patrick, we can't worship anything else apart from the sun, because if we don't worship the sun won't shine down on us, and so on. So what he did, he had a very, very good invention. He essentially put a cross at the top of the building and made the sun shine on the cross. And essentially as time went on, more and more people in Ireland turned to Christianity. The church behind me was built as the better version of the previous church we saw in the video, the one that was on the hill. This church here essentially is obviously the biggest in Ireland, but in Ireland St. Patrick's Day isn't typically what you think it is. It's not people running out of bars drunk and so on. St. Patrick's Day in Ireland is basically a family day where families come together, sit down, have dinner and so on. So it's a very, very, very beautiful building that we have behind me also. You can't really see it properly guys, but this area here, the walkway, is done in the shape of a cross. Over there you can see one side, here's one's over there and one's over there. So it's like a cross coming together right here in the middle where this fountain is. Really, really cool design. So behind me is the famous Dublin Castle, and this building here has had many, many years of historic moments, but the most significant one of recent times was just over a century ago when the official handover happened, when the British government and the British royal family gave Ireland back to the Irish. So when the handover actually happened, it happened right here, and essentially it was quite a frosty occasion, as you had obviously what the Irish were called the freedom fighters doing a handover with obviously the British government. Now since then obviously it has gone on, things do happen here, they've got a market here and so on, but you can see here the castle, and there's also an office where the Irish Prime Minister does his meetings and stuff here as well. So it's actually very, very cool. People like Obama's been here, the Queen of the ex-Queen of Britain, and so on and so forth. That is it guys for today's video. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. I've got more videos coming from my time here in the lovely Republic of Ireland, where I'm going to be seeing a few more sites and so on. But in the meantime, please leave a comment, let me know what you think, and I'll see you on the next video. Let's explore.